Begin transmission. Hello, everybody. It is Outer Rim Transmission back with the full crew for this week. We got Milton, we got Ben, we got me, Chris, aka Starrapter. This is episode 175, and we have some things to talk about, that's for sure, in the realm of Star Wars. We're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff coming from different avenues for Andor Season 2. Plus, we're going to be talking a little bit about the music by John Williams, the documentary that hit Disney Plus a couple weeks ago that kind of chronicles the entire career of John Williams, the maestro extraordinaire himself. So we're getting to all this week. Milton, we missed you last week. How's it going, man? I think you might be muted.
It's good to be back. Thanks for having me
go.
back as always. Love being back with the crew. Things been good, like I was telling you before the podcast. Just life has been crazy with planning a wedding and work and stuff like that. So other than that, though, I can't complain. I'm looking forward to discussing some really good John Williams scoring tonight.
Oh yeah, there's some legendary stuff to talk about. I watched that a couple weeks ago, and I've been chomping at the bit to talk about it ever since. But it seems like the last 2 weeks, every time we go to record a show, either me, Ben, or you guys, it's like, more breaking Star Wars news happens. So I figured, okay, there's nothing breaking news this week, so there's our opportunity to take our shot. But yeah, Ben, how's it going?
Good. Just excited to talk about all of this stuff. There's always something to talk about with Star Wars, and this whole documentary is going to be a good one to talk about. I mean, I just literally just watched it last night, so it's definitely fresh to me. So it'll be a good time talking about all this.
Oh yeah, it's a good thing I took notes because that's been over 2 weeks now since I watched it, so I would have forgotten everything otherwise. That's just how my brain is these days with all the content that is hitting me left and right and forward and backwards. There's a lot coming out. But getting into it, I guess I'll kick things off this week. So my week in Star Wars was ties into what's out this week. There was a new Star Wars audio book that was just kind of shadow dropped out of nowhere, and it was called Star Wars: The High Republic Seeds of Starlight. It's an audio book. There's one narrator, and it's more geared to like the all ages audience, but it's a High Republic story in Phase 3. And it came out. When it comes to these things, I try to multitask because I'm like, oh, I have the luxury of listening to something. Maybe I can try to do two things at once, So I decided, oh, I might as well go for a run while I'm listening to this thing, try to kill two birds with one stone here. And that was like the first time I think I ever ran listening to a Star Wars audiobook. And it was kind of exhilarating because I happened to be listening to it while it was at the last act of the story. And as we all know with Star Wars, if it's a good last act, it's got like multiple things of action happening at the same time from different perspectives. And yeah, that's exactly what was happening. So I'm running through the forest, hearing blaster fire, sweeping epic music as I'm running through this place. And it's just like, I feel like I got a little bit more pep in my step thanks to the visceral nature of the audiobook and whatnot. So I know you guys listen to plenty of this stuff when you're doing cardio and whatnot at the gym, but that was fun for me to be like, oh, now I see what they're talking about.
Oh yeah, listening to audiobooks is always such a great way to do it. I do it personally, like I said, when I'm lifting or like you said, doing cardio. And it's always a good time. And I know you're always liking them as well, Milton, when you're doing cardio, listening to some of those like radio dramas and things like that.
Oh yeah, it's not even a question. Like I'll say it till the cows come home. Any Star Wars audiobook or radio drama is like the best thing you can use when you're working out or hell, just trying to go to sleep. I mean, all the stuff that fans do when it comes to creating their own audio dramas and audiobooks with die or whatnot, like it's a beautiful thing. And I think the reason why those books work so much and it ties into John Williams tonight is like the use of music, the use of sound effects. I mean, honestly, I can't wait till someday they do a Ben Burt documentary to talk about the sound effects of Star Wars. So again, those books are worth it because they're very much listening to a movie instead of watching it, and your imagination expands because of how they create those stories.
Oh, certainly. I was actually listening to another audiobook today, guys, while I was at work. my other job is pretty monotonous, so I can get away with listening to podcasts because it doesn't take a lot of concentration to do what I do with my part-time job. So, yeah, I have the luxury of doing that. And I was listening to a World of Warcraft audiobook of 5 parts. It's written by Star Wars alum author Adam Christopher, and same thing there. I was like, all right, this is cool. Again, I'm killing two birds with one stone, listening to some entertainment while making money. So. There you go. All different avenues for which I try to multitask, either making money or working out. So there you go. Do you guys have anything to share for this week for your week in Star Wars?
Um,
I know. I'm trying to think me personally. No, not really. I think this is probably one of those rare weeks where I didn't really watch much Star Wars nor interacted with it, which is kind of actually no. I lied. That's not true. That that's not true. So again, I told you guys about the Prism YouTube channel that I listen to because they do the AI audio series that they make, and they just released like part 11 of their Obi-Wan series, and I'm telling you guys, like,
Mm.
this is what we needed for like the Obi-Wan show. Like, if you, it's there's like 11 parts, then he has like maybe a couple more parts coming out, but oh my god, do they get better and better? It's sick. So I did listen to that this week on my walk when I take my daily walks from my lunch break at work, and it was amazing. So yeah, so that was my week in Star Wars. Again, if you haven't checked it out, Prism, PRISSM, on YouTube. It's a really good channel that does all these AI generated stories. Trust me, it's worth it.
Yeah,
oh yeah, it's
I
always
still have yet to get to that. I still have yet to get to that. I don't know. I'm bad. I'm bad. I got to get to it.
No, listen, I hear you. Like I said, I didn't discover it until I say about a year, but maybe a year ago. Because I just happened to like stumble past it, and I was like, oh, like these aren't bad. And then he's done a whole bunch of series, whether it's Star Wars or The Matrix or whatever, and it's like he's expanded on what potentially Star Wars could have been from like his perspective, or what The Matrix could have been if he did like a little mini series or something. So it's dope. Like it's worth it.
yeah. I mean, that is a really good channel. Like you said, it's cool seeing all those series because I remember I checked out the like one of the sequel ones that you'd recommended off their channel before. And it's cool seeing those types of things. It's just cool seeing like what fans can create and like do in this whole space. But yeah, for me, actually, on the fan note, I I saw a really cool thing. Like I didn't watch any Star Wars movies or shows or anything this week. It was just too chaotic. But I ended up seeing a really cool fan thing this week that reminded me, and it was just like it was just something I wanted to bring up on the podcast tonight because I wanted to be like, hey, when you're fans and you have different opinions than each other, like, you're able to, there's always the opportunity to like change your mind on opinions, change your mind on opinions of people and things. Because I saw this really cool YouTube short. So Star Wars theory, a lot of people can view him controversial one way or the other. But anyways, I saw this guy. This guy came up to him at a convention, like because Theory did a meetup this past weekend or the week before, and the guy came up and said, like, "Hey, Theory, I just want to let you know, like, I really hated you for a long time." In Theory, on his face, you could tell he was like, "Huh?" Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're coming up to someone and telling him that, and he's like, "Yeah, but I started like listening to your stuff and started getting your different perspective on things, and whatever. Like, even though I don't agree with you on everything, like I've learned to like, view it as like, hey, you're just, you have your opinions and you're passionate about your point of view, and like, blah blah blah." And like they had a nice little back and forth and handshake and hugged and everything, and like, they were real cordial with each other. And like a lot of Star Wars fans, I think, online need to take note of that. Like just because like if you have different opinions on a show or movie or something doesn't mean you need to absolutely like hate the person, because it's just a different opinion at the end of the day about a fictional franchise. So like I thought that was a really cool little moment Theory had at a convention with just some random fan who literally said he said he would always post hate comments on Theory's videos for like the past 4 years. And then he finally had the opportunity to meet him and was like, "Oh, you're not exactly what I painted you to be on the internet."
Yeah, it takes a lot of guts to just go up to somebody like that first of all, and just be like, I actually hated you at one point, right? It's like we got
Yep.
the computer protects people from backlash and awkwardness, of course, but yeah, staring somebody down eye to eye and admitting that is like, okay, um,
Yeah.
you don't get that at conventions much.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought that was cool, just like seeing them like interact and you know, like go over that because it's like too many fans online. They get into that whole viewpoint of like, hey, if you like this show, like for example, we just said Acolyte. Look how controversial that show was. I remember I posted a tweet. I'll never forget. I said an episode of Acolyte was 7.3, and someone commented under one of my tweets and said I was toxic for giving it that rating. And I'm like, okay, this is like a show, and for one, a 7.3 is just average.
That's
And
actually better than average on most scales. That's actually considered good.
yeah, exactly. But I'm just like, to me, like, I guess my thinking is when people have like opinions on stuff, I'm like, okay, my opinion should not like matter to what someone else's opinion is. Like for example, look at you, Chris. We're great friends here. You love Andor. I think it's not great at all. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to be your friend or not be on the podcast or anything. Like, it's just a different show at the end of the day. So it's just a different opinion. And like a lot of fans just forget that when they're debating online because, they've almost turned Star Wars into politics where it's like you have different camps of sides or whatever. And I'm just like, guys, at the end of the day, like this is all the franchise we love and stuff. So, that's what that whole conversation I seen Theory posted, like it just got me thinking about all of that stuff where it's like, guys, we got to remember it's just a franchise at the end of the day. Like we can have
Right.
different opinions about different things.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with that. Look, it's like with sports. Like we know it's a form of entertainment. It's an outlet. It's where people go to escape, and that's what Star Wars is. It's a land of fantasy. That's clearly fiction. But I think why people get the way they get is because it is a way of escape. It reminds them of their childhood. It reminds them of the better days of their lives, which that's great. That's absolutely, you should feel that way. However, you're right. There's no need to try to be toxic in your response to someone else disagreeing. I mean, there's plenty of things that I disagree with a lot of people in my life or in my circles, and I'm like, okay, that's fine, and we'll debate it and we'll move forward. That's not the reason why we became friends. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not the foundation of our friendship or our relationship. Like, yes, we're going to disagree, but we have vibed over different things in life that brought us together.
Completely agree.
Well said. Well said. So, segueing into our main show, as always, we are available to download on any podcast streaming app of your choice. We're usually on Spotify. Well, we're always on Spotify. We're always on Apple. We're always on Amazon and anything else. I have yet to have been told that people can't find us. So, if you do have questions and concerns, go ahead. Send us a message here on YouTube or send me a message on Starrapter on Twitter or on X and we'll figure it out. But as far as that is concerned, we're also available primarily on YouTube, youtube.com/Starraptors, where you'll find us usually every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. For sure, we're going to be doing that pretty steadily with the release of Skeleton Crew, which is just in a couple weeks away. So looking forward to that. Out this week, I already alluded to the first release, which was a new audiobook, as I mentioned. It is Star Wars Seeds of Starlight, but we also had Ewoks issue number 2 come out as well. And we had a couple stories. Now, this is really interesting, Ben, because it's kind of weird how Lucasfilm is honestly doing their marketing. We can't ever make heads or tails what the heck is happening there, because you think with Skeleton Crew coming out in 3 weeks that it'd be full steam ahead on promotion for that show, but they're kind of stepping over their own toes because they're putting Andor on magazine covers. They're putting Andor footage in 2025 look aheads on Disney's videos on YouTube. Like, what the heck is going on, dude? I can't make heads of it.
Yeah. I don't know. I go from one day, weeks ago I say Star Wars is getting better at their marketing, and then we get to this and it's like, wait, well, we're focusing on a show that's coming out almost the end of April. I don't know. It's just strange to see it's strange to say the least to see how their marketing strategy is when it comes to their shows and things. Because, like you said, we are 3 weeks away from Skeleton Crew, and mind you, that's a totally unknown property. I mean, all we really know it's Jude Law and a bunch of kids on an adventure. There's your summary. I mean, like, I just don't. I don't know. I feel like they should be doing a lot of more press tours right now, like sending out Jude Law with some of these kids,
Yeah.
and people involved, and like get them on. You know what I mean? Like the old days, 10 years ago. But like when you'd see like Daisy Ridley and the crew, on Good Morning America, on like those Good Morning talk shows and things like, I feel like they should be doing that for a show like this because it's like it's totally unknown. Like, get out there, give us the premise of it and everything. And it's just odd to me, honestly. Like, I don't like predicting it this way, but I feel like they're gonna wait till the last minute to start marketing. Like, they might not start marketing until like the Thanksgiving Day football games. Like, maybe they'll start marketing during Thanksgiving because it's like family time and it's a family kind of show, whatever. Like, maybe they're gonna wait clear another week and a half to start marketing this thing.
Yeah, it's an odd choice. It's an odd choice, but we'll stick with Andor for now because we'll do probably a whole preview episode on Skeleton Crew probably the week before it comes out, kind of recapping all the TV spots, everything else that comes out from it. But we're going to get into the cover. So this is really interesting, as you see here on YouTube. As I pull this up, we have the cover, which features Mon Mothma, features Andor, and a brand new shot of everybody's favorite Australian Star Wars villain, director Orson Krennic, played, of course, by Ben Mendelsohn. So that's super exciting.
Oh,
I mean, we
dang.
had this referenced. Yeah, we had this reference back in, I think, D23, in the US version, because now we got to specify if it's Brazil or US. But yeah, this is cool. This is cool. And it just shows like, it's Star Wars characters on the fronts of magazines. It's just something that never gets old. But it's cool to have a reveal of Krennic there, definitely cool.
Well, this is actually my first time seeing this picture because, like I said, I was busy all day, so I did not get a chance to look into any of this material other than the clips. Yeah, so that's awesome seeing Krennic. Like, I mean, we go from the director of his episodes leaking that information months ago to them actually just putting him out there in the spotlight, which is actually crazy. So
Wait,
I like
he's
that
in the show?
Yeah,
yeah,
dude.
so yeah, he's yeah, they just put him out front and center on those photos. Like, and the director of his episodes, Milton, literally leaked, like, in an interview just casually on a podcast a few months back and said, yeah, Ben's coming back to play Krennic. So, like,
Okay,
we've
so
known for...
I need to ask this question. And so, what's the timeline for this show? Maybe I thought it was post Return of the Jedi.
Wait for
Oh,
Andor?
hold on, Milton. We're on Andor, not Skeleton Crew.
Oh, I was about to say, I was like, what are we talking about? Bro, because I'm thinking, like, this is Skeleton Crew. There's no way this don't seem right.
Yeah, Milton's probably like, wait, how's Krennic alive during Skeleton Crew here?
Exactly. I was like, I ain't crazy. Okay, so yeah, that makes sense for Andor. I got you. Continue.
Okay, you threw me a curveball. I was like, I do not know where you're taking this.
Yeah, okay. Just my bad, fellas. I thought I heard correctly. I'm like, we were just talking Skeleton Crew.
Oh yeah, our bad. But no, I was just saying though, it's it's cool though that Krennic's coming back because, to me, that almost makes me wonder, like we know the show's going to be broken up in 4 separate years, based on the 3 episodes per year type structure. So it makes you wonder, since we're seeing Krennic out in front this early, are they going to kick off kind of like, like Rogue One starts out with the bad guys, basically? Are we going to start off similar to Rogue One? Like, are we going to just start from the Krennic's perspective and Deidre and, those characters? Like, maybe we get Krennic as more of a recurring character where we see him age up through the series, kind of like, building up, what's the prequel book of Rogue One, Chris? Like, kind of like leading into that even or something.
Catalyst.
Like maybe this will like kind of play off Catalyst more. Like, we'll get more references to the events of that book. And like, Krennic might end up being like kind of a recurring character since he's out in front in the marketing. Like, I don't think they'd save him till the finale when they're showing him, 4 months, 5 months before the show comes out.
Yeah, I have a strong feeling because we have the great part about Andor is we do get the Imperial perspective from Dedra Miro. So she's part of the ISB. I imagine that we're going to see them two interacting at least once, to be like, okay, this is what's happening here. These are my informants have telling me this about these rebel cells, blah blah blah. So I could see that happening, and maybe he gets like, how Krennic gets like he could just be like, oh, you're my underling. Like he could just start throwing her under the bus, whatnot.
Mm. Oh yeah, I could see it going in that direction. I think that's another role as well. You know, um, eventually I think Deidre something's going to happen to her where Krennic will step in and like take over as the main Imperial.
Oh yeah. So another thing that happened, we got this random trailer from Disney Plus that surfaced online. It says coming in 2025. So I'm watching this video, I'm going, oh my goodness, there's like 7 or 8 like shots of Andor in here. And yet we haven't even gotten the official teaser trailer. So I pulled some shots from that trailer as I'm showing you guys on YouTube right now. We're gonna just take a quick look at some of these shots. So this one is pretty cool. I mean, first of all, this looks grittier. Like Andor season 2, I feel like it's turned up the grittiness to 11 now because we're seeing these crazy shots, all these people just in these very lived in kind of Star Wars, and we see these stormtroopers kind of corralling these people. Now there's a lot of rumblings online. People have been kind of doing a lot of speculation. There's nothing to completely confirm this, but maybe this is like the sequence of the Gorman massacre, which was referenced
Mm.
in Rebels. That's going to be what is the catalyst, bringing that word back, for Mon Mothma to completely become radicalized against the Emperor and to basically go out against him and then get picked up by Ezra Bridger and the crew in that episode of Rebels. So this is where this show is going to be fantastic and probably a must see for people that are wanting to know what the beginning of the rebellion was, the Rebel Alliance, because this could be something special here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great getting to see like some of these connections and these different things. And like I mentioned before, I really do think this season has a good chance of like kind of redeeming a lot of the people like me that were expecting one thing and then got basically something completely different in the first season. I think this is going to be more geared toward what a lot of people were thinking the show was going to be. More of this rebellion stuff, more of this, these sorts of things. Even get that little line I think in the trailer. I think it's from what's his name talking about like focusing on being a soldier or what, however it's said in the trailer. So like, I just really, I think it's showing good promise from like these early images and early clips.
Oh yeah. So a big thing that's coming now is the introduction of another Star Wars TIE fighter. And at first glance, this ship does pretty much resemble a TIE Interceptor, and we know TIE Interceptors actually existed well in like before Return of the Jedi. If you're playing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, I think it's the second sister arrives in a TIE Interceptor. That's like 5 years after Return, or 5 years after Revenge of the Sith. So these things have been made in production for a while, but this is a slightly different TIE Interceptor. And in the trailer, the Bix Kayleen is talking to Andor, saying we need a pilot. And then the next shot in this little mini trailer is him inside this thing, which is actually not a TIE Interceptor, but it's actually a TIE Avenger, which is a deep cut for those gamers out there that played, I think, the original X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. So for people who are listening rather than watching, this thing looks like it's got maybe a slightly bigger cockpit, but like the wings have points on them. That and there's like some different kind of lighting on the ship. Like that's the only thing. And if you look at the back of the ship also has a definitely different kind of feel to it. So could this be the situation of maybe Star Wars Rebels where, Thrawn was proposing that TIE Defenders would be like the ultimate weapon of the Empire, and then Tarkin ends up winning the vote with his Death Star project over that, and then they had to dismantle the TIE Defender program. Maybe there's something going like this, where this is like a prototype type of ship. I don't know, but I mean, yeah, the design could have been more distinct, but hey, it's another TIE fighter to add to the list.
I mean, look, it makes sense, honestly, in the sense of the Empire continuously trying to advance their weaponry. I mean, look, even though quote unquote they were, I guess in their terms, in peacetime, but they knew something was on the horizon. They always had to prepare. I mean, you don't want, like, most historical, empires tend to try to look in the future to say, hey, what's our common threat, or how can we always get better? So it makes sense that we have this development. But I do like your point about Tarkin trying to win over like the funding or the approval to have his Death Star project to be the primary weapon. I mean, because
Yep.
we know Tarkin was a very good strategist, and he knew where it was at. He knew what would need to be a priority versus what wouldn't. And I thought there was an episode of, was it Rebels or something, where Thrawn does lose, or he doesn't get the funding for something. I thought, what was it, Rebels?
Yep. Yep. That was the
Yeah.
one.
So so it's like that makes sense if that would be something that we would get in this show.
Oh yeah, I feel like in the end, Milton, like this show is going to be so closely connected to Star Wars Rebels that I'm going to have to do a rewatch after watching Andor season 2, because I can imagine there's going to be, especially now that we're going to be running concurrently with Star Wars Rebels. I definitely expect like some characters, some storylines, because when you look at Andor season 1, Ben, it's very like isolated from the rest of Star Wars. Like, yeah, you have Mon Mothma, but you have a whole bunch of new characters that it felt like, okay, this is its own little thing. But as the more we see of season 2 with director Orson Krennic, maybe we'll get an appearance of Bail Organa at some point. Like, I feel like this is gonna blow up as far as, okay, these are all the characters we already know, plus these new characters mixing in, that it could take us for a pretty good trip through nostalgia, but also just for some really good storytelling in general, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's I think there's a good chance for a lot of that, really, just because of the time period that it's in. Um, we're already getting, known characters like Krennic involved in the show, so it makes you wonder who else could be in the show. I mean, look at the first season. You have when the whole dinner party thing's happening, and Mothma and those people are like talking about like the Emperor. Like a lot of people were like, "Oh man, is the Emperor gonna like come into this scene or something, or like get shown or anything?" Just because of that sequence, and it makes you wonder, like, who knows, maybe like, because like there hasn't been many leaks about this show from a lot of the leakers, so it makes you wonder, like, could they have snuck in like a Ian McDermott for like an Emperor speech type thing or something, or like a hologram, a hologram we haven't seen of Ian McDermott as the Emperor, etc., like talking galaxy wide or whatever, because it's like around this time, and like with the rebel insurgency like rising and things, like it just makes you wonder if they are going to attach it a little more to like the galactic scale that way, since we brought in a character like Krennic, or like, we know Krennic was like in Rogue One, he was reporting to Vader. Like, do we get a Skype call to Darth Vader at some point in this series or something? Like, it's hard to like put a bingo card on it, because when you watch the first season of Andor, like I was kind of thinking like, man, it seems like Tony Gilroy's trying to like do his own thing, etc., like not really go like the nostalgic cameo type route. And then we're front running the second season with one of the most known faces in the Disney era with Star Wars, and Ben Mendelsohn. So it makes you wonder, like, if they're going to bring in some other folks as well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And looking at this image here, Ben, I was thinking about you because I know you're very outspoken about, oh, there's not enough action for Andor, pretty
Yeah,
much. And I
basically.
feel like they targeted this ad directly at you because Bix Kayleen is saying, "We need a pilot," and then Andor's
Yeah.
like in this imperial outfit, in this shot, like clearly in a TIE fighter, clearly being an agent, a spy to steal this prototype, I would imagine, TIE Avenger.
That's
So this is what you've been waiting for. So
that's that's literally what I've been waiting for. I'm not kidding you. When I watched this clip today, I said to myself, I clapped and said, "That's exactly what I've been wanting." Because like we heard so much chatter leading into the first season, like this was this like spy thriller rebellion type thing, and then it was really kind of just like a prequel for Andor's kind of story of entering the rebellion, and like this is exactly what I wanted. This one image, seeing him in that uniform, doing this like kind of spy mission type thing. That's what I was wanting from the first season. So that's why, like, like I said, people like me who kind of like seemed like it was going to be one way and then now it's the other. Like, I really do think this season has really good potential because of that. And that's why I joked last week. I may just like, if this season turns out to be great, I'll just like ignore the other season, just act like this is the standalone season.
oh yeah, and then another scene here I have on the image is Andor looking like he is at the same location where a lot of us are speculating that it could be the Gorman massacre. And interesting thing is, I think that is the same jacket that he was wearing in the opening sequence on the Ring of Caffeine in Rogue One. Maybe it looks like a familiar outfit,
It looks like it.
and
Yeah.
looks like he's got a D17H blaster pistol. The only reason why I know the designation is because playing Battlefront so much and playing miniature games that have the weapons specified. It's like the Fleet Trooper blaster, it looks like. But yeah, again, here we go. We got more action for you. So, I mean, it looks like there's a huge crowd scene. Everybody running. This is full blown production here. Full blown production budget.
It makes you wonder. When I saw that scene, seeing a bunch of like people running around and stuff like that, makes you wonder: is it really like the Empire doing that, or is this like a Saw Gerrera attack?
Oh,
You know what I
that's
mean? Because in Rogue One and like all this stuff, he's known as like this extremist. Like maybe we get to see some of that side of things, where maybe they show why he has that reputation. Like, of course, we've seen a bit in Rebels and Clone Wars and whatever, but like maybe we see it like in this version where he like maybe attacks like more of like an innocent like imperial city or something, you know what I mean, to like make a statement to the Empire.
oh my goodness. So I've been reading a book. Did I tell you guys about the book I've been reading that has to tie into Andor at all?
No.
Not I think we've seen the cover, but that's about.
All right. Well, hold on. I don't know why my camera's just dipped down a second. Oh, here we go. So I'm reading this. I got this from Comic-Con. Came out early there. This is basically, you were talking about, tying into Catalyst as a precursor. This is a tie-in to Andor. This is the prequel to Andor, essentially. It's following the lives of Bail Organa, following the lives of Mon Mothma, but also Saw Gerrera. So as soon as you mentioned Saw Gerrera, I was like, yes, we need more Saw Gerrera. We need to know why he's so, like, crazy and whatnot. And we're already getting, this is like, this book takes place like weeks, not even weeks, like days after Revenge of the Sith. And we're getting that Saul Guerrero that is like so radicalized by the Empire that he's like, everything is for Onderon. Everything is for Onderon. He doesn't want to take over the Empire. He doesn't want the Empire to fall necessarily. His motives are, I just want my piece of space to be away from the Empire. I don't want the Empire interfering with Onderon anymore. I want our own specific territory and I'll be happy. And that is not enough. And he keeps pushing back to get more territory and all that sort of thing. And it just gets crazier and starts losing more limbs and starts just making less and less sense as the years go over and over and over. Between Jedi Fallen Order, we see him. Between Rebels, we see him. Of course, Rogue One, Andor. So it's one of those characters that has just been given so much life and so much character development over the last several years since Rogue One, really. Every time this guy pops up, like he's not a character that you're meant to like, but I find him just so interesting because you have, like this book has, right? You got the different cells. You got Mon Mothma. She's all about being political and trying to do diplomacy to get this stuff sorted. And you have Bail Organa, who is kind of like an agent in a sort, and he is working with like the Jedi, the splinter cells and different things to be more combative. Then you have Saw Gerrera that's just like, oh, I'm just gonna throw pipe bombs and just bombard. I don't care if civilians are in there. We're just making a message. I don't care how. So it's really nice to see, and I think Andor did a pretty good job for season one to be like, okay, this is where Saul is. This is what he's doing. He could be an ally, but he could also like get us in trouble as well with what he does, which is completely unreliable. So that's my little rant on Saw Gerrera, but I wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
Yeah, I mean, I think his character is going to be interesting in this season just to see what they do with it. And it makes me wonder too, Chris, like with them having it split up in like four 3-part arcs, like maybe one full arc is a Saw Gerrera thing.
Oh, yeah. Could be. All right, so there's two more notable shots I want to talk about. This one makes me extremely happy because there was a quote from somebody on a production. I think it was Tony Gilroy, because Empire Magazine is, slowly tricking out the articles that will be included, I think, in the official issue, which goes on sale the 21st of November. But yeah, in this shot, you see the glory that is Yavin 5, the Misasi Temple, Yavin 4, the Misasi temples in the background. He is saying we're gonna get the history about Yavin. He's saying like we're gonna get the origins of the rebels finding Yavin or something like that. Because it was cool like seeing it in Rogue One, then seeing it in Rebel season 4. But both of those cases, there was no references of like how they found the place or why they decided to settle there. So I'm looking forward to getting the story behind it, because Ben and Milton, I know you guys are bigger on Legends than me, but from my understanding, like those temples are Exar Kun's territory from like the Sith Wars, like way back like 5,000 years or maybe even longer in the past. So I don't know. I mean, they've already mentioned like that they have Ricotta. Like Tony Gilroy put that into a script for season 1, which even predate those guys, I believe. So I wouldn't put it past them to mention like, oh yeah, Exar Kun, that this place is power steeped in the power of the dark side of the Force and all this sort of thing. And we're gonna stay there to like confuse the Empire. They'll never guess that we're gonna be living on a planet that is filled with the dark side. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. It really is because like the whole Ricardin thing was totally out of left field. We weren't expecting that. So like maybe if they don't, even if they don't even name drop Exar Kun, maybe they like say, oh, like an ancient Sith once like was here, etc., or just something. Because yeah, I mean that's where it was. Like it was heavily in Legends. Like you have obviously like stories with Exar Kun and those things, but also like even in post Jedi era, like you have Luke. He was getting tempted by the dark side by like Exar Kun's spirit and things. So like on Yavin. So so you have like those connections there. So it's gonna be cool just to see if they do even name drop like just the words like Sith or something in this area. But like even not, like I'm just interested to see how they end up getting to that point.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to flesh out about the rebellion. And when you think about A New Hope, you think about the rebels. Like a lot of us will think about, yeah, Yavin base. That was the original base that we've seen the rebels at. So good
I was
stuff
about to say, like,
there.
we've really gotten additional information on Yavin. I don't know if it was it in the Knights of the Old Republic game. I don't remember if they referenced it in that game or not. I thought
There's
they
a
did.
there's a good possibility it was probably referenced in there. I know Dantooine is in there.
Yeah, and then I know, and I believe the one of the comics that came out literally like around the hype to Force Awakens about Luke Skywalker and with the Force trees. Remember?
Oh
You know,
yeah.
because they were on Yavin. I think they went back to Yavin to establish the base again or something. But I know, or they did something. But anyways, he got the Force trees, and
Yep.
then Poe's dad or Poe's mom like planted one like on the Yavin base.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah,
So
that was from issue 4 of Shattered Empire. Thanks for
that's
picking that out. That was a good pull, because while it takes place after Return of the Jedi, there is a lot going into that to figure out what the hell. I mean, I don't think they've even addressed that yet. Like that's
oh,
been one of those hanging fruits that's not been
I
pulled
remember
down yet.
they bring the tree back, and he's like, "Oh, Luke's like, yeah, you can have one," and then like they just kind of like like plant it, and they just move on. Like I'm like, okay, that's it.
Oh man. But yeah, those were some cool images. I mean, again, it's funny as heck how this was part of like the Disney's like catalog of shows, and yet they stuck in the first official Andor footage in there. It's like, You thought we would have gotten a teaser trailer before like random stuff like that, but hey, we're gonna always question the antics behind the marketing team at Star Wars. Can never.
Yeah.
They're keeping us guessing. They're keeping us on our toes for when this stuff is gonna drop. That's for sure.
Yeah, they just go into like a random marketing generator and type in what's our strategy for today, and that's pretty much they just kind of by the seat of their pants.
Yeah. So I definitely want to spend time about this documentary that is all about John Williams because I thought it was pretty awesome. I thought it was pretty extraordinary. I really wasn't expecting what we got. I mean, turning this thing on and realizing this is a full feature film, basically like an hour and 45 minutes. It came into. By the way, this is directed by Lawrence Bouzaru. It's produced by Steven Spielberg and Ron Howard. So there's a lot of big superpowers involved in this thing, and I think the biggest takeaways for me is it's just showing like the life of John Williams, and as far as like the little moments with the family, really, just another side of him that I never really thought about. Also, the warm kind of brotherly love between Steven Spielberg and John Williams, like the idea that like, first of all, he couldn't be called Johnny. He had to change his name to John officially on all these even though he didn't really want to go by that. But like it's really cool to see Steven and Johnny Williams just palling around. There's certain like behind the scenes moments where they're just the camaraderie is there, the rapport is there, and Steven just doesn't want to work with anybody else but him. And it's just seeing the early stuff too by John Williams was really fun. Like I had no idea he did Gilligan's Island and Lost in Space. I had no
Yep.
idea that he did all this TV stuff before he got like the first real big gig. And yeah, there's a lot of this here and music and the power of emotion. But yeah, I really did enjoy it. I want to throw it over to Milton. What'd you think of this?
So I just actually watched it this morning, and I like you. I did be an hour and a half or hour and 45 minutes. So I was kind of happy that it was that long. I would say the two things that surprised me was his. Well, I didn't know his parents were like into music like that. I didn't know they had like a music legacy. So that kind of threw me off. And then, and in a good way, it threw me off. And then two, I didn't know he was actually a really good like jazz like musician.
Yeah.
Which again now kind of now thinking about it and seeing his work and listening to it for as long as I have makes so much sense, especially with the cantina scenes and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
just how he's able to flow and have a grace about it. So seeing those two things kind of really was like, oh, I didn't realize that was part of his life. It was interesting to see his personal life with his children. I didn't realize his son was the lead singer to Toto, and that's funny because I just
I
went
didn't know
to
that
a
either. Yeah.
a music trivia. We went to a music trivia thing last night in where I live, and one of the songs was Africa by Toto, and I'm thinking, oh my god, like that, like I didn't know John Williams' kid like helped write and sing that song. That's insane. But it's cool to see like that, and I didn't realize that his wife was like a famous actress, and before she died, which was crazy. And then obviously just seeing like how he expressed his music and his feelings, and overall like the overall respect, which wasn't surprising, the overall respect that his peers have, not only at that time but moving forward. Hearing Seth MacFarlane talk about his love for John Williams, obviously Spielberg, George Lucas, J.J. Abrams, Kathleen Kennedy, like we know like he's that great. And to see that he's done all these projects in TV and with film and like or like with composing like orchestral things for like other like famous musicians in the world, that was like pretty dope, because when you got the best of the best calling you and say, hey, can you
Yep.
write me a celloist concerto or a violin concerto or whatever, it's like you're doing something in the music game. So I just thought this documentary was well done. It was very fascinating. I enjoyed every bit of it. And again, like he's the GOAT. Like I don't care what anyone tells me, like he's the GOAT.
Oh yeah.
If you love Harry Potter, if you love if you love any of those scores, like, and you don't know who he is, but you know the music, like, he's the GOAT. Like, you know what I'm saying? You got regular people humming that stuff, and they don't know who he is, but they know his music. That tells you how great you are, and that's going to live on, even when it's time for his time to, even when it's time for him to pass away and leave this life. His legacy is so cemented. Like, that's true immortality.
Oh yeah. So much good stuff. What about you, Ben? What'd you think of this one?
Oh yeah, well, first of all, I completely agree with everything you just said, Milton. And first of all, like you guys said, this documentary was it was just amazing. I admittedly like I was just assuming this was going to be like a 45-minute thing, so I didn't plan on watching it till 11 o'clock last night, and I turned it on and was like, uh-oh, this is almost 2 hours long, so I guess I'm going to be up till 1 a.m. Um, so I like locked in and made sure I was wide awake watching it, and I thought it was so good. Like, like you guys mentioned, it was cool seeing like the stuff we didn't know about John Williams, like the basically pre-Jaws era, pre-Jaws and Star Wars era. Like it was cool, like seeing all of those, accomplishments. Like you mentioned, Milton, his family being musically inclined. That was something I had no clue about. And then yeah, just like all the different like little moments of it. You mentioned Chris, the like the relationship with Spielberg. That's always been a big thing with him, with Spielberg. It's always him and John. And I like it was cool just hearing their little stories together. Like I love the Jaws story when they were talking about how he was gonna show Spielberg or play the Jaws theme for Spielberg,
Yeah.
and he was just like dunna 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 dunna, and
Uh-huh.
Spielberg said he was sitting there and he was like, okay, he was waiting for it to like pick up, and he was like, that's it, and Spielberg was like, oh, like shocked, like, oh, so it's just two notes. So it was just cool seeing that like little funny moment between them. And then like my big takeaway too from all of this is like big respect on John Williams for being 91 years old and still making his music like he did,
Yeah.
70 years ago, because he's still handwriting it and
Mm-hmm.
still, doing, like Spielberg mentioned, there, as long as like he's doing the scoring and stuff for his movies, like they're always going to be from like a live orchestra. It's never going to be synthesized really. And, that's like big respect to him, because being 91, I mean, honestly, you probably want to, or like a lot of people want to be efficient with their time because of the age you are, and like the fact that he's like putting in so many hours into, like handwriting his music and doing all these things, like that's very very impressive. That he just like isolates himself to a room and sits there and writes it all. Like that's so impressive, and I like that was honestly like really cool hearing that, because I was like, I was just waiting for the moment, because I've never looked into the backgrounds of the music making for this, other than the stuff, like the orchestra and like the basic stuff. So I was just waiting for the moment to say like, oh, I started working with like the new technology or whatever, and then like that never happened. So like I thought that was like really really cool.
Yeah, like he mentions like, oh yeah, I understand, like I could get this stuff done so much faster. Like he knows like the way of his doing it is not efficient at all anymore, but it's just
Yep.
part of his process. This is how he's always done it. I don't blame him. Like that is how he does it. That's how he's able to figure things out. If you switch up the formula, maybe he's not going to be as creative as he could have been doing it the longer way, where he's thinking things out more. Perhaps I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I
There's
thought I thought that was neat, and I liked too when he was talking about like the whole process of it. I like how he said like sometimes he'll like write a whole thing out and then wake up the next day and be like, "Wait, I did all of that," and it's just funny hearing that.
Yeah, what I liked about this one, Milton, is that it really gets into the weeds quite a bit of like how music is even done, like the concept of what's the order of operations for what has to be done. They talk about temp tracks, and I think that was with the Jaws part. They were talking about Ben. They were talking about the different things, like, oh yeah, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm thinking. And John was just like, no, I got a better idea. So like the idea of like the people that the studio puts tracks in that they think is similar to what it should sound like, but then the power of the conductor the music composition could change. So it was nice for me to to hear that and figure and to learn a little bit about that side of the industry.
Oh yeah. Well, guys, just think about this. Like, coming off that, like, what, like, the studio was kind of like, thinking versus like what he was making. I think one of the best moments in that was, George Lucas got to kind of experience Star Wars like us three and everybody else did, because George was sitting there talking and was like, hey, John was like describing the music and stuff to me and all this. So, when, like he said, when he first heard it, he went in there and sat down and listened to them play it. And, like he said, people can like talk about like what they're making and things, but until you actually hear it in person and like, know what the person's doing, you're still kind of thinking, he's basically saying he was apprehensive. Like, I hope this works because we need this to work. And then, he said he like sat down and, they played it and he was just like blown away. And like, I think that's really cool that like, George got to kind of experience Star Wars for the first time, like all of us did, basically.
Oh my gosh, I got the quote from George here. Not like I held up a microphone to George Lucas or anything like that, but what I mean is I have a quote. According to George Lucas, hearing the main theme for Star Wars, hearing the song was like having a baby. That's what he says in this
Oh yeah.
documentary. Freaking George Lucas, man. Lord George Lucas, ladies and gentlemen. He never ceases to crack me up, even when he's almost 80 right now, right?
Yeah, yeah, he's
Yeah.
like, yeah. No, I think it's a very interesting, funny quote. I think some women would disagree with that, but uh, but other than that, like I felt that the way they were trying to tell the audience is that yes, you've heard the music in the movies, but if you're part of that creative process, that's a different level. Cause I couldn't even imagine. I mean, imagine if we've gone back in time and we were able to be in those recording sessions and watch him work with the London Symphony Orchestra. Man, like that'd be so dope. I couldn't even imagine what. And I'm sure in that moment, yes, like they hear the music, they're saying, "Oh my God, this is going to work," but there's no way they thought these scores will still be so popular in 2024, where again there's 20,000 people at the Hollywood Bowl or all over these orchestra assemblies wanting to hear these musics 40 plus years later.
Oh, for sure. I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, of course, we have all the Star Wars music, Jurassic Park, etc. But one of the most known John Williams scores that I always like will catch myself humming when I'm working out or whatever is the Superman score. Like, that one is so good. I just love that theme so much, and like, I love that they had the clip of Christopher Reeves in there talking about it, and he's like, yeah,
Oh
without
yeah.
like, without John's music, if you're Superman and you go to fly, you're just gonna go and fall down. Like I thought that was a good little comedic moment. And then like even one of the best moments too, I think, from the documentary guys was the guy who was getting interviewed, who was the violinist for Schindler's List.
Mm.
And it cracked me up when he was like, John called him, or John's agent called him and said, hey, John would like you to work on Schindler's List with us. And he said he'd think about it. And he said like he hung up the phone and his wife was like, who was that? And he was like, oh, John's agent, yada yada. And she was like, wait, you told him you would think about it? You told John Williams you would think about it? Like, you basically need to turn around and call him back and say, yeah, I'll take it. It's like, and that'd be pretty much all of our reactions too. Like, hold up. You can't say I'll think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if someone said, Milton, you got to cut off your left pinky toe or something, man, I got you. Like whatever John Williams want me to do, I'm doing it. Like he's
Yep.
like if I get the opportunity to work with him, just be in the same room with him, like I can't even imagine the questions and the dialogue we would have just to sit with him to talk about his creative process or just to work with him. I mean, again, there's probably 10 people, 10, 15 celebrities that I've watched over time that I would probably just be in awe of. He'd be one of them because of the impact he's had not only on our lives as children in the sense of our imagination, but our love for orchestral music and listening to the soundtracks and keeping that genre alive. Because something that stuck out to me with this documentary was John's love for the orchestra style music in cinema, and seeing like, this was becoming a dying art when he was getting into the game, and how he revitalized it, but also now he's seeing where it's starting to shift a little bit, and he's hoping that another generation would kind of maintain it or bring it back. So I think those would be the type of questions to ask him and say, hey John, how would you want to grow this particular genre of music 50 years from now, something that's a dying art that should continue to live on.
Oh yeah. Like it's go on, Chris.
I will say, like, relating to this, Milton, like the whole segment where he's working with this orchestra in Boston, and he didn't get very far, and because these people were just like so uppity and like stuck up, and like, no, we're not gonna play this crappy music from a movie. Like, why? Like, and he ends up like basically getting hired, asked to come back because they realized how idiotic they were for saying that.
And it's like the disrespect. And when I saw that, because I didn't know he was part of that group or he was going to be that lead person for it. Like when I heard that, I was like, man, the disrespect that you're going to do to this guy, who's again at the time was already a GOAT, but he was really starting to like get even more like up there. It's like, what are you people thinking, bro? Like this guy's releasing banger after banger after banger. Like at one point they showed in a documentary that the Star Wars album from New Hope was the second highest album sold in 1978 or whatever, behind Fleetwood Mac. And it's like Fleetwood Mac was the shit back in the 70s. Yep. Like they were bangers. For you to sit there and be a film score number 2 selling in the 70s, you're doing something right.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's the thing. You talk about Star Wars's album being that big. Well, guys, like this wasn't even the documentary, but I seen it must have been like just a little fact that came out there just because of this documentary coming out. But I seen a site post like, so back in the late 90s when Phantom Menace was amping up its marketing, the Duel of the Fates song that was like on MTV's top 10 music list for like 11 or 12 straight weeks, and it was all fan voted. So like, it's cool seeing like how big and impactful like John Williams's work is. Like, it's everywhere. It's it's Star Wars, it's Jaws, Jurassic Park, like even the oddball things, like you said, Gilligan's Island. I didn't know that at all. Like if you would have given me a list of 50 shows, I would have not guessed he was making music on that.
Yeah, but I'll say he did a couple Twilight Zone episodes, which is a banger of a show, 70s or 60s and 70s. But even to go back to your point about VH1 or MTV or whatnot, those two particular organizations are known for like their music videos back in like the 90s. I remember Duel of the Fates and Battle of Heroes had music videos released. Music video, bro. How many orchestra type songs had music videos created for them that was released on those platforms? Name me one movie that's done that. I can do it. I can't, because I remember it distinctly for the Duel of the Fates. They were so hyped. I mean, I think they released that as its own like segment for, I don't know if it was on like a video or no, was it for like a sporting event or something. It was like a 5-minute music video.
Yep.
And I think that was the debut of that song. And I remember Battle of Heroes, they did that too for like a 5-minute segment. And I was like, bro, like this dude's got music videos. Like what composer gets music videos done for them?
Well, you have that, and then on top of it too, just talking about music like impacting so many people's lives. Like I thought it was really cool just seeing Spielberg talk about how their score from Saving Private Ryan's like one of the most requested things from all the military branches. Like I thought that was pretty awesome. Seeing that, like that was cool. Because like it's a really good score. Right. And I just think for me, like one of my biggest takeaways really from this documentary, it's just like seeing John Williams' personality over the years, like, seeing him grow like as a musician, as a composer, as a creative, seeing how like, how hardworking it was, because he said like as soon as he finished Star Wars, like he literally the next week was starting on Close Encounters. Like it was like boom, 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 just go, 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 go. And so it was really cool just seeing that progression. And then even some of like the closer sides, like you mentioned, Chris, like with his wife, with her passing, and like with his kids and everything. And then even I thought like it was good they even put like some of his funnier, more just casual personality in there too, because like you see these interviews of John Williams now, and he's like so like prim and proper. I mean, he's 91 years old, so of course he's like, he's gonna act like prim and proper and things. Well, like I like how they had a little clip in there from like the 80s with Spielberg. Had the camera in the orchestra room with Williams, and Williams was like, "Hey," he's like, "This feels like I'm standing here with someone, watching me in the bathroom, in the shower with a camera on. I'm not used to a camera being on." He's like, "You're lucky I have clothes on right now." And like, it's just cool seeing like the little bit of like, non-super like professional John Williams, like just kind of a more casual, joking John Williams.
Yes.
So like, I thought that was nice. And then of course the ending segment too, with like his kids, like, talking about him like getting into golf and different things. Like, it's just great, like just getting that like side of him that we never see before. We've never seen before.
Yeah, and you mentioned this earlier, Ben, about the idea that like his process for making music, it's so isolated. He's stuck in a room for like all day long, door closed, just head down, coming up with this stuff. So to see him now in the later years of his life playing as a rock star at the Hollywood Bowl every year, where there's thousands of people swinging lightsabers in the audience and going freaking crazy. It's insane. He could have never imagined him going to that degree of one end to the spectrum to the other, and really just bring in the idea, Milton, you've been talking about this, the orchestra as the mainstream, bring it to the mainstream, keeping it in the eye of the audience, of just keeping it there and just glorifying it, making it fun, making it cool.
Yeah, I mean that's why he's, to me, if you can cross over into multiple generations, into multiple mediums, you're doing something right. Look at some of the most successful people, whether it's in business, entertainment, movies, music, whatever. If the ones, or professional wrestling, the ones that can last for decades and cross over and adapt, those are the ones that are so successful, the greatest of all times in their fields, and have a lasting impact. So I love that about John Williams, where he is able to do that. Now, to his admission, Ben, you mentioned this about his old school way of doing things, which I love that he does that. But he did acknowledge, he's like I would love to be around for another 50 years to utilize some of the electronic technology and see where it goes. But he's like, I'm so used to doing my thing and how it works for me, and he acknowledged that as well, which is awesome. But he's not dismissive of where music is going, and the tools that are being utilized. I mean, I can think of probably the only composers that are probably up to his level currently, are probably two off the top of my head, would be Michael Giacchino and probably Brian Tyler, who's done a lot of the Avenger movies, and obviously Michael did, Rogue One, and he killed it. So I think those are probably the only two composers currently. Oh, and then obviously Ludwig from Black Panther. Those are probably the only three currently that I can say that are, wouldn't say on his level, but I have so much respect for them, and they remind me of his type of work.
Well, I mean, not even like with the film scores, like all those guys, like, are doing great things. But I thought one of the biggest like nods of respect for John Williams's work was like, one of the greatest like living composers we have now is Yo-Yo Ma. Like, he's still alive. And like, he's only, I think I Googled it, he was like 69 or 70. And he requests John Williams's work all the time to like play it for people, because he's like a big violinist and things. Like, and he plays a lot of John Williams's work. Like that's huge for like someone who's like, not a movie composer, but just like a traditional composer. Yeah. And he's requesting a movie composer's work. Like that's really good.
And then I should tell you, because he wrote pieces for him. They talk about Yaya requested him to like write pieces for him, and he's played them. And again, if you're getting these these best of the best in the world, and they listed so many people that he's written for, and it's like, man, he isn't just a film composer. He is a true musician. He's a
Mhm.
true musician, and I love how we got to see his work when he started in the military, how he transitioned into film, then he got into doing TV, and then he just was like, hey, I got to take a step
Mhm.
back and write pose because that's kind of where he became like his thing. And it's like, man, he's a true musician. I mean, there's not many true musicians who are still around. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think the last true musician I can think of when it comes to overall music, I would say was Prince.
Yep.
Because Prince could play, he could write, sing. John doesn't sing, but he could play and he can write and he can compose.
Well, you know what this all reminds me of, though, Milton, in our sports world? To me, like seeing John Williams go from being like, at first, just like this movie guy in the 70s to like, becoming like probably like the greatest modern composer ever, in my opinion. Just seeing his arc, like, he pretty much like just took over the entire industry. And, he did it alongside with Spielberg. And it just reminds me of something like, Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan, where it's like, they started out and built and built and built and boom, like they're like the greatest duo ever, coach player combo ever, or like Brady and Belichick. Like Spielberg, he had that similar arc where he went from being like, oh, people are like, oh, he's just the blockbuster guy to like, now he's making Schindler's List or Saving Private Ryan, and like, him and John Williams working together, like we will never see a duo like that ever again, in my opinion. Like that great, that level, that successful. I mean, I believe he said he had 54 nominations for Oscars, or like that's incredible. Like nobody will ever come even close to that in terms of like music nominations.
Oh, for sure. And he's one of those guys, that again I mentioned he's a true composer. And when you think of composer, people always think of like Beethoven and Mozart and Karl Orff and or Giacchino or Rossini. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like he's up there. You know what I'm saying? Like even
Well,
though we've never seen those guys in life and they never written like music for like movies, but historically those are like the guys. He's up there in my opinion. He is Beethoven to us. He is
yep.
Mozart. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't care what anyone tells me. Like if they try to say, "Oh, Milton, you're foolish to compare him to, you know, to Mozart," I'm like, miss me with that because it's true. I mean, he's a Bach. You know what I'm saying? Like to me,
Yep.
he's
Yep.
Well,
I mean,
Milton, so
he's Richard
like
Wagner. You know what I'm saying? Like he knows what he's doing. He's on that level.
Well, guys, I think that's something people miss out on when they talk about like John Williams. And like you said, people may be like, "Oh, well, he's not like with those type of guys." But the thing is, if you kind of like put the shoes on a different foot for a moment, I'd be willing to bet you, like, obviously, like Beethoven, Mozart, those guys, like they're all-time greats, of course. But if they were in today's modern era, they would be doing probably similar things as John Williams, like making huge music scores for things like they would adapt to whatever the time, whatever times they're involved in, and they would apply like their greatness to it. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's a point like a lot of people miss when they talk about these like all-time great discussions. An all-time great person will be great in whatever era they're involved in. It doesn't matter what it is.
No, you're not wrong, and that's why I'm very passionate to compare him to those guys because
Yep.
he's done it for 50 plus decades. You know what I'm saying? And like those guys in their time was doing it for that as long as they did too. I know life expectancy was different, but if they had the opportunity to write music for 50 years, they'd be up there. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Beethoven, Mozart, Chopin, Wagner. You know what I'm saying? Like he's on that Haydn. Like he
Mhm.
is a top 10 composer musician of all time when it comes to classical orchestra. You cannot tell me any other way.
Oh yeah. And at minimum, he's the best modern composer.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
There we go. That's probably the best way to
Yep.
put it.
There
Yep.
you go. I like the quote that ended the documentary, and I think it's a perfect note to end on for this week's episode is music is not enough for a lifetime, but a lifetime is not enough for music. So very wise, very sage words. And another thing to note too is just how sharp he is at what is he, 92 or 93 now? Like this guy
Mhm.
doesn't show any signs of stopping anytime soon. Like he put out a quote or something a while ago, said, "I'm gonna just keep working on music every day. Like it doesn't matter. Like I'm always gonna work on music. It doesn't matter how old I am. It's just a part
Mhm.
of me." And I think that quote just sums it up perfectly. Is like, yeah, there's never enough time in our lives to really absorb all music and to appreciate everything out there, because there is just so much of it, and it is a soundtrack to our lives, you know.
Well, yeah, and I think honestly, I think music is probably his saving grace, which keeps him feeling young. Most 92-year-olds usually have Alzheimer's and they can't take care of themselves
Mm-hmm.
and they aren't sharp. Literally, we just saw a documentary of a 91, 92-year-old man who can still play the piano fluently and really talk and really comprehend what he's doing, and he's still sharp and he's still able to
Mm-hmm.
process and write. Like that's probably his saving grace for not aging for a normal 92-year-old man who's losing it. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm sure he might have his moments mentally, but you can't tell when it comes to his music ability, which again,
Yeah.
that's a great thing.
I mean, look,
Music
he's
keeps him alive.
yeah. I mean, music like that has to be something a big part of it, like being creative like that, because you're getting your mind working and stuff. And like, I mean, he's even being physically active. He's picking up golf at 91 years old. Like that's pretty impressive. Like picking up a totally new activity like that. Um, like, that sort of stuff will keep him alive for quite some time. And it's nice to see him, be out and about like this, because we've seen plenty of other Hollywood folks that have gotten even in their 70s, and it's like, oh man, like when they, it's not good. And like, with John Williams, he's still right there with it, like all of us.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. So, excellent documentary. Excellent documentary. I really enjoyed it with some of the I mean, I don't watch a lot of these movie documentaries unless they're related to Star Wars, but this was definitely a Star Wars adjacent for sure. And another quote. This one's from George Lucas is the soundtrack is half the movie, right? You take
Yep.
that soundtrack out of Star Wars, what are you left with? You know? So these are wise words from the man himself. So with that, we're gonna wrap things up. There's no score on this one. We're just gonna all unanimously say we recommend watching this. It's on Disney Plus. Go ahead, check it out. But yeah, Milton, where can the people find you online?
Yeah, they can find me on X at Milton Weber 7 or Instagram at Milton 7 Weber. Just come check me out, be friends, be cool, have no problem having a good conversation and discussing life, Star Wars, or sports, or anything that's funny. I appreciate you guys watching and listening to the podcast. So thank you guys for being here.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, everyone can find me on X and Instagram at Real Ben Maynard. I'm always on there talking Star Wars, of course, fitness, sports, movies, and anything in between, really.
Alrighty, and you can find me right here on YouTube, youtube.com/Starrapter, for all of your Star Wars reviews. I have a review of the aforementioned Star Wars Seeds of Starlight on the channel right now. I'm also on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel every Wednesday night on the Tractor Beam show at 9 p.m. Eastern, where me and Matthew, we break down the weeks that were Star Wars comics in detail. So if you are keeping up to speed or want to be kept up to speed, that's the place to go for all that information. But for Ben, for Milton, for Chris, aka Starrapter, and everybody in the chat, that's going to do it for episode 175 of Outer Rim Transmission. Thanks for watching. May the Force be with you, and transmission.